Hi guys, welcome to Ken's Games Collection. Recently I picked up a Sega Master System after probably about 27 years of having the original one, and I'm happy to say that I was able to get it all tuned into the modern day TVs. I got a TV up here in the games room. It wouldn't actually tune into this one. I had to take it downstairs to our living room where our Sony Bravia was, and after a while I did get the thing tuned in and was able to play games. And when I was getting it tuned in, I was thinking what game should be in the Master System once it's all tuned in and I see it for the first time. And the obvious choice for me was Phantasy Star. So I get it, put it in, get the TV all tuned in, and there it was after probably about 27 years since I've last played that game, maybe even longer. There it was again to see that. And the thing that really blew me away about that was the battery backup in that game. This is a 30-year-old game. The battery backup was still working and it still had those save games. So that was actually amazing to me to see that. I was totally shocked about that. I thought that battery by now would have just malfunctioned or just would have been flat. It was still working and it still had the save files on there, which yeah, I still can't get over the fact of that. And then my attention started going towards the very first game that I played, which was Wonder Boy 3, The Dragon's Trap. And I put it in there and I started playing the game, and I kind of noticed that it's a little bit different from the remaster that came out in 2017. In the original one, when you do a jump lunge attack, when Wonder Boy lands with the sword lunged out, he'll do like a bit of a slide. And I noticed that's not in the remastered version. It was just something that was, I guess, in the original version. I don't know if it was a bit of a fault in the programming, but you can do a jump lunge attack and it slides, you slide into the enemies, which is a cool effect I found. So I got it up to the first boss and I defeated that. Then I turned into Lizard Man, get my way through the castle, get out of the castle, and then there's this little cutscene, and that's when I had this moment. Something I was just, I don't know how to describe it. I was getting bombarded with all these memories of not actually playing the games back in the day, but me and my mate on a Saturday morning, 9 a.m. I would either go over to my mate's place or he'd come over to my place, and we would go out to our local shopping centers hunting down Master System games. Now this is 30 years ago, so there was no internet. There really wasn't any Master System magazines around. I do remember when the Super Nintendo came out and the Mega Drive, that's when I really got into the gaming magazines like Game Pro, Electronic Gaming Monthly, Mean Machine, and Computer and Video Games, CVNG. They were great magazines and they would cover Master System games, but it wasn't really that much. I do remember with Sega Aussiesoft, the company that distributed the games here in Australia, there was like a quarterly magazine, I think it was Sega Zone. It's been a long time, so I'm just trying to remember this sort of stuff. But I do remember there was a quarterly magazine, and you know, we had to rely on that sort of stuff to know what was coming out, and that was like coming out every 3 months or whatever it was, and it was really hard to try and figure out what's coming out, what we wanted to get next. Now inside every Sega Master System game case came this Sega games catalog, and me and my mate would get this thing, open it up, and just go over it time and time again, trying to figure out what games we wanted to get next. And this is what we did on a Saturday morning. We would go around to our local shopping centers. We both lived on the north side of Brisbane, so we would go around to Stafford City, Luckridge, Chermside, Toombul. I think sometimes we go to Indooroopilly and Aspley, hunting down games. And the most frustrating thing about that back then, it's not like today. There's EB game stores in every suburb and you're pretty much guaranteed you're going to find it. The games you want, you know, you're guaranteed it for sure. But back then it was so random with trying to find games, and there'd be times we were both after the same game, and we made a pledge to each other that we would keep going around to every store we could find to make sure we both got a copy of that game that day. Sometimes we were lucky, sometimes we were unsuccessful of doing that sort of stuff. But yeah, that was just one of the things that we promised each other. And there would be times when there was a game I'm after, there's a game he was after, and we would get those games and we actually swap them around to each other so we could try them out. And if I liked what he liked and he liked what I liked, then here we were weeks later trying to hunt down those games, and it was really hard. And it was games like Wonder Boy 3: The Dragon's Trap, the first game I played, the game that got me all hooked onto this thing. I remember we went around to about 3 or 4 stores before I was able to find that game. Now, finding the original Wonder Boy game, that was pretty easy. That was everywhere. But I do remember, I think it was Wonder Boy and Monster World. That game my mate had first, and it must have taken us about 2 months for me to find a copy of that. We went to every store we could think of trying to find that game, and it wasn't there. But eventually I did find it, and that was just the way it was back then. Games like Gavilius, Yeez, even Spellcaster. I'm just looking off the list here. Now, Golden Axe Warrior, I was not interested in that game until my mate got it and lent it to me. Loved it, had to get it in the collection. But we really did rely heavily on these magazines, and it's just amazing to think, it's taken all this time for me to get the Master System back in the collection, getting it all hooked up on the TV, playing Wonder Boy, and I was just getting bombarded with these memories of those Saturday mornings when me and my mate would drive around to shopping centers, have lunch, buy games, go back to either my place or his place playing them, and just talking about what we're going to find next or what we're going to hunt down next. And after all these years, those memories have resurfaced because of rebuilding this Master System collection. I don't know if you have any similar stories to what I have. If you do, share them down below. I think it's really important to share these stories because it's a part of for me where I came from in gaming and what we used to do back in the day. I kind of liken it to now when a few weeks ago I met Greg the Lone Wanderer and Tim from Rage Lane Gaming, and we went to Eddie's Retro game store here in Brisbane. And here we are all these years later. For me, 30 years later, I'm hunting down Sega Master System games as they were, because it was their childhood as well. And that was a great experience to have in this generation. It's been a long time since 30 years ago, me and my mate driving around looking for games, and here I am all these years later meeting some fellow YouTubers, and we're out there hunting down those Master System games. But if you have a comment about experiences like that, similar, just tell me down below. It'd be really cool to hear it. But seriously, these catalogs, I think they would vary maybe every 6 months or so, but we really did rely on this heavily just to see what was coming out, what we wanted to get in the collection, until we started getting the magazines coming through where they had some Master System reviews at least. So yeah, thanks very much for listening to this. I'm still so amazed. I got a Master System back in the collection, and it's boxed. Amazing. I still can't. I'm pinching myself. I still can't believe it. So hey guys, till next time. See ya. Bye.